I should have said no. When my boss asked me to drive his wife home after the company gala, it felt harmless, just a small favor from a junior employee trying to be helpful. She'd had a little too much champagne, and the night air in downtown Chicago was colder than expected. I remember thinking how strange life was. Me, a kid who grew up counting pennies, now holding the car door open for someone who lived in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. She was quiet at first. Elegant. Composed. But as we drove through the empty streets, she suddenly leaned forward and whispered, "Take me somewhere private." My heart pounded. Every worst-case scenario flashed through my mind. My job. My reputation. My integrity. I pulled the car over beneath a streetlight and turned to face her, confused and uneasy. "Please," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Somewhere I can talk." That's when I saw it, not mischief, not temptation, but pain. Instead of heading to her building, I drove to a quiet 24-hour diner. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. She wrapped her coat tightly around herself as if she were holding something broken inside. Over coffee, she began to speak, about loneliness, about being invisible in her own marriage, about feeling like a trophy instead of a person. I didn't offer advice. I just listened. Sometimes kindness isn't dramatic. It isn't heroic. It's simply staying present when someone feels unseen. That night, nothing scandalous happened. But everything changed, because compassion, when given freely, has a way of healing more than we realize. I thought the night would end at the diner. But it didn't. She stared into her coffee like it held answers. "Do you know what it feels like?" she asked. "To live in a house bigger than your childhood neighborhood, and still feel completely alone?" I didn't grow up with much. Small apartment in Toronto, second-hand clothes, my mom working double shifts. But I knew loneliness. Different shape, same weight. She told me how my boss was brilliant, respected, admired in New York and London boardrooms, but distant at home. Business trips. Endless meetings. Charity galas where she smiled for cameras while feeling invisible. "People think money fixes everything," she said. "It just hides the cracks." Then came the twist I didn't expect. She wasn't asking for secrecy because of temptation. She was asking for privacy because she just learned she was pregnant, and she was terrified. "He doesn't even notice when I leave the room," she whispered. "How do I tell him we're bringing a child into this?" Suddenly, this wasn't about wealth or status. It was about fear. About a woman standing at the edge of motherhood without feeling supported. I didn't give a grand speech. I told her about my own mother, how she raised me with courage even when my father walked away. I told her that children don't need perfect parents. They need present ones. Her eyes softened. For the first time that night, she smiled, not the polished gala smile, but a real one. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can give someone isn't advice. It's perspective. And sometimes being trusted with someone's vulnerability is the greatest responsibility of all. The next morning, I expected regret. Instead, I got a message. It wasn't from her. It was from my boss. "Come to my office. 9 a.m. 3 words. No emoji. No explanation. My stomach dropped. In cities like New York or London, corporate reputations move faster than truth. I replayed the night over and over, every word, every pause, every decision to keep things respectful and public. When I walked into his office, he didn't look angry. He looked tired. "She told me everything," he said. My heart nearly stopped. Then he surprised me. "She said you listened?" Not what happened. Not accusations. Just that I listened. He walked to the window overlooking the skyline and admitted something I never expected. He hadn't realized how distant he'd become. Success had consumed him. Targets. Expansion. Investor calls across time zones. He thought providing financially was enough. "She told me she was afraid to tell me about the baby," he said quietly. Baby. The word hung in the air like something sacred. He wasn't furious. He was shaken. She said a driver reminded her what empathy feels like. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just raised to treat people like people. He turned back to me. Last night, he said, you protected my wife's dignity. And maybe my family. That was the moment I realized something powerful. Kindness travels. You think you're helping one person in a quiet diner. But the ripple reaches boardrooms, marriages, futures. And sometimes, integrity speaks louder than ambition ever could. I assumed that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, my boss called me into his office again, but this time, there was something different in his eyes. Not authority. Not distance. Gratitude. I'm taking a month off, he said. No international travel. No late-night investor calls. I'm going home. In cities like Chicago, London, or Toronto, people chase success like it's oxygen. Step back, and someone else takes your place. But for the first time, he chose his family over the climb. Then he said something I never expected. I've been reviewing our company culture, he continued. We reward performance. But we've ignored people. Within weeks, changes began. Flexible schedules. Mental health days. Parental leave policies that actually meant something. Leaders trained to listen, not just manage. It started because one woman felt invisible. And because one conversation happened in a quiet diner. But the real twist? His wife asked to meet me again, this time at their home. Not in secrecy. Not in crisis. She thanked me, not for advice, but for treating her like a human being when she felt like a headline. She looked different. Lighter. He stood beside her, hand gently resting on her shoulder. And in that moment, I understood something powerful. Kindness doesn't always make noise. It doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. But it transforms rooms. It softens hearts. It rebuilds what ambition sometimes forgets to protect. I walked out of that house still a junior employee. But somehow, I felt richer than anyone in that penthouse. Months passed. The baby arrived on a quiet Sunday morning. I didn't expect to hear about it, but I did. A short message from my boss. It's a girl. Thank you. 2 sentences. That was all. Yet I understood what he meant. Work changed after that night. The office felt human. Conversations were less rushed. Leaders asked about families, and meant it. People actually used the parental leave policy without fear of falling behind. Productivity didn't collapse. If anything, it grew. Because when people feel valued, they give more, not out of pressure, but pride. One afternoon, as I prepared reports for a meeting, my boss stopped by my desk. I've been thinking, he said. Character matters more than credentials. He offered me a promotion, not because I was the loudest in meetings or the most aggressive negotiator, but because he trusted my judgment. That's when it truly hit me. That night in the diner wasn't about scandal. It wasn't about risk. It was about presence. In a world that moves fast, from New York to Manchester to Vancouver, people are starving for something simple: to be seen, to be heard, to matter. I didn't change their marriage. I didn't save a company. I just chose decency when it would have been easier to assume the worst. And here's what I've learned. You never know who's sitting across from you carrying silent battles. A kind word. A patient ear. A moment of integrity. It may not make headlines, but it might just change a life. Sometimes, the smallest acts create the biggest ripples.